Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
How is everybody today?
Well, I'm good. How are you?
What can I say? Another day before hump day. I'm fine. I'm fine. Just giving the others an opportunity to wade their way through traffic, I suppose.
Okay.
Join us. So, yeah, just let's relax for a few moments, give them an opportunity.
Good night, all.
Hi, good night. Good night. Good night.
Good
Welcome
night.
aboard.
This is Teresa Glinton. I'll change the name. I'm just noticing that it's saying Bronze Tiger. So I'll update that for you.
What's wrong with Bronze Tiger again?
Just so you know who's in the class. Just so that you know who's in the class.
Point well taken. Other than that, Bronze Tiger is fine.
Okay.
After all, we're in a risk management class anyway.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Just trying to find my contacts there. Oh, it's around here somewhere. Can you guys see the contact information I have up on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Great. Let's go ahead and tuck that somewhere, just in case you need it over the next 3 weeks. And perhaps beyond, you never know. So, 4% so far. 5 persons so far. The rest of them have 2 more minutes to step into the classroom and then we begin, one way or the other. By the way, did anybody say how long this class is supposed to be tonight?
We usually go for 2 hours.
2 hours. My. Let me see what I can come up with in 2 hours. Okay.
Oh, wow. I mean, if it could be 1 hour, that's fine too. I don't think anybody's complaining.
Let the Lord use you. Let the Lord use you. 1 hour is fine.
For real.
That's what I need, a guilt trip. Point well taken, though. It's been a long day again, yes?
A very long day.
Indeed, indeed. So the risk management session, is this your first session or you've had some sessions before this one?
No, this is our fifth. This is our fifth teacher. Fifth
Oh,
teacher,
okay.
fourth teacher. Yeah, four.
You're well into the program already then.
Yes.
As usual, Miguel is giving me mixed signals as to when this session would kick in, so I was just making sure I was on the right track, in the right class with the right students.
Yes, yes, yes.
So how has it been so far? What have you guys been talking about up to this point?
Basel one, Basel two. Just going over the quadrants or what he's doing. Something. He's doing some stuff. He's doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know. I saw the outline actually.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So how many more modules after this one do you have?
Just one.
Almost to the end.
Almost to the end.
Hmm. Do you have an examination when you're done with the classes?
Yes, they have an exam in June. Just one exam, so that's it.
Open book, closed book?
They said multiple choice. Wasn't sure if it was open book or not.
Okay. All multiple choice?
All multiple choice.
My. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder who came up with that American idea. Certainly not a British idea.
Hmm.
So you guys prefer multiple choice questions as opposed to writing out answers?
Well, we did both. So there was a written component that's like 40%, and then there's a multiple choice that's 60% of the grade.
Okay, so it's a combination.
Mhm.
Well, that's good. You're almost there. All right. I guess whoever will be joining us tonight will be joining us. They might probably be twiddling their toes somewhere, totally exhausted from all the other modules. So let us begin. And did everybody get my contact information that's in the room right now?
Good
Yeah?
evening. I did not.
Oh, how do you pronounce your name, Miss Johnson? The first name?
Lanika.
Anika. Okay, let me
Yes,
give it
sir.
a moment so you can get that. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
There you go. Write that down somewhere in case you need it throughout these sessions. Let me know when you're done.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Amazing technology. If somebody had told me back in the day when I had an afro and wore bell-bottom pants that I'd be a part of this technological map, I would say you got to be kidding me. Yet here I am. Good night, everybody. Let's get started. Um, as indicated, my name is Samuel Wilkinson. I'll be your lecturer for the next 3 sessions, dealing primarily with risk management, in particular compliance, regulations, ethics, that kind of thing. Just to remind you of how good you should be when you're doing your jobs, how honest you should be in doing your jobs, and how you should blow the whistle on anybody who are not doing things correctly. It's called risk management. Risk management is a very broad area. It covers tons and tons of stuff, but we'll narrow it down to a couple of important subtopics like risk and compliance and risk and regulations and risk and ethics, things like that. And 1 or 2 other little interesting tidbits, hopefully that you can carry off with you and that will be of some value to you out there in the big old mean world. All right. Of course, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to send me a text or send me an email. I'm always checking both. And so that's not a problem. If you get up at 3 o'clock and you can't sleep and you want to send a text about something that concerns you, feel free. I won't wonder and think you're weird. Right? 'Cause I'm checking stuff all the time. All right, so that's me. I've been a little background just for the record for you guys. I've been around financial services forever. I started out, if I say how far back, you might date me and then figure out what an antique this is teaching us. But I've been around a long time in financial services, from Bank of Nova Scotia as a credit manager to financial controller in several industries, to private banker for about 20 years, which included senior management and compliance and all that crazy stuff. And so I've been around the bush a little bit. So there haven't been too many things that I have not seen, still fact seeing a few things I didn't think I'd see. And I only said all of that so that you can have the assurance that some of the things I'm talking about, that I at least know something about what the hell I'm saying. Okay. Any questions before I find out who I'm talking to? Okay, if you think of anything that you want to ask me about anything, feel free. My 3 sessions are going to be open sessions, which means that I'm going to be yapping and you can interrupt at any time. If you have any questions about how some of this stuff connects to the real world, your job, somebody else's job, something in the world, please feel free to be as communicative as you want to be. Ask any questions, even if they're not directly related and you feel you want to ask it anyway, ask it, because that's the kind of session this is going to be. I am very interested in you passing your examination, but I'm also very interested in the fact that you feel comfortable in making an opinion, speaking your mind, raising a question, telling us about a topology somewhere, any bloody thing you wish to do. Okay? Feel free. Feel free to interrupt me. You don't have to put up your hands because I can't see it anyway. I can't see anybody yet. But just jump in and say something. Excuse me, I have something to say. And I promise I'll shut up so you can do that. Okay? Please do that. All right. So let's see who I'll be talking to for the next 2 weeks. Ebony, roll. Are you there, Ebony Roll?
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Ebony. Why don't you introduce yourself, at least to me? Maybe your colleagues know you already.
Yes, but I'm Ebony Roll. I'm employed with the Central Bank of the Bahamas as an analyst 2 in the Bank Supervision Department.
Doggone it, you're a regulator.
Yes.
And you are doing CIRM because?
Just to get a better understanding of risk management, as you would have stated, it is a broad topic. That is something we do on a daily basis in terms of regulating the offshore banks. So just to get a better understanding of risk management.
Indeed, indeed. Um, yeah, this issue of risk management has been around a long time and it has gained a whole lot of prominence, and now it is just a matter of everybody's opinion and responsibility. And so any little tidbits you can pick up on any risk management discussions in any capacity is always going to be appreciated, especially if you're regulated, Ebony.
Yes.
Are you planning to be governor of the central bank one day?
Oh, well, you never know. That's a big title, but you never know.
You never know. For example, you never thought you'd be in bank supervision as an analyst, correct?
Exactly. I spent most of my career in human resources.
How about that? So life is full of ironies, isn't it?
Yes.
Just to let you know how ironic it is. Your former governor, Wendy, you know Wendy, don't you?
Yes.
Wendy started out way back in the day as a research analyst. How about that?
Right.
That boring research department. But she seemed to have loved it for some reason. And
Right.
days, bankers used to have to visit the research department at the central bank to submit their reports. And Wendy was one of the supervisors eventually at the time in research, and then the rest is history, yes?
Right.
So it's not an impossibility. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Teresa Clinton.
Hi, I'm Teresa Glenton. I'm a compliance officer, and I've been in banking going on a decade plus.
Decade already?
Yeah, started when I was really young.
Because I was about to say you still sound really young.
Yes, I started when I was really young.
Okay. Well, that probably explains why you're doing this course then, to add to your repertoire.
I obtained, I think I obtained my compliance certification a few years ago, and I think what I've noticed in the industry is less focus on AML compliance and the compliance officer's job becoming more of a holistic view on risk and risk management. And so to prepare myself and to equip myself with the requisite skills, I thought it was important to, refresh, upgrade, add to, so you can keep yourself informed, knowledgeable, and you could keep yourself competitive.
That's me. That is the only way to go in this mad world that you youngsters are in. And it's getting more and more interesting by the day, especially if you're in the compliance world. And yes, we've gone from box ticking compliance officers to holistic. And everybody has this great expectation that we're supposed to police the entire financial services industry or any such area designated as financial services at all costs. And if there are any failures, it's nobody else's fault except compliance. I'm not sure how they arrived at that madness, since we have a whole lot of other players involved in risk management, as you will see. But yes, they have put a great burden on compliance officers. Back in the day when I was a compliance officer with a couple of offshore financial centers, I worked as a compliance manager for a French Canadian bank. Doggone it. And then I worked as a compliance manager for a Brazilian bank even. Eventually they made me the second officer of the bank for some reason. And I say that because they don't like to make, folks are reluctant to make local people heads. But anyway, it happened somehow. And in any event, I've seen some interesting things in the world of compliance. Those are just two of many other areas. I sit and I do outsource compliance services, I consult in compliance and all that crazy stuff. So I get to use some of the amazing experiences I've had in the world of compliance and risk management and MLROism and all that stuff to try and help some organizations who are interested in trying to be helped. All right, so Teresa, you're in the right track. You're certainly in the right place. And hopefully by the time you're done with all this, especially these sessions, I would have added something to your repertoire somewhere. Okay? You certainly need it. All right. Thank you very much. Let's see. Anquel Hannah. I hope I said that correctly. Anquel Hannah. Okay, nothing yet. Daniqua. Ka. Lynn Johnson.
Thank you. I don't mind, Lynn.
I was beginning to mess that up, so I think I'll go with Lynn.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, Lynn, let it rip. Why are you doing this? I mean, introduce yourself.
So I'm also employed with the central bank. I've been there for almost 12 years. I spent the first 5 in an administrative capacity, and then I transitioned to the authorizations unit that's responsible for licensing and processing other various applications. I am currently a senior analyst in that unit. And I am undertaking this course just to expand my knowledge base on risk management. Like I think it was Teresa said, you know, it is an evolving topic of discussion, and I think very relevant. So yeah.
Yeah, make no mistake, Lynn Johnson, it's quite relevant. Anything you pick up along the way can only assist you and in no way harm you in terms of your aspirations and your responsibilities to your organization and perhaps even yourself, because outside of the organization, we're all still exposed to all kinds of risks anyway, aren't we? So you might find that some of this stuff is even useful outside of the firm or company that you work for. If you're part of a church body, for example, and you have a certain responsibility in the church, risk is inherent in that too, because, you know, if you're responsible for the collection plate, you might run the risk that maybe somebody wouldn't miss a few bucks since it seems to be so much, or whatever the case might be. So you have to decide what is the ethical thing to do, and should you. So it's this thing about risk doesn't stop at your job, but it will be very helpful for the job. Okay, good stuff. Then you're definitely in the right place. All right. Janelle McPhee.
Hi.
Janelle, introduce yourself. Let it rip.
Well, introduce again. I was just in your corporate governance class, if you remember. I was the youngest one there. It's me.
I
It's me.
thought the name was familiar.
Yes, I'm back.
Nothing wrong with that. Welcome back.
Thank you. So, just a brief, you know, I am from Bank of the Bahamas. I'm in credit and collections department, and I'm pursuing this course just to get a little better understanding of the job function and try to, you know, expand. Um, there, I've been to the bank for 8 years, and I've been in the credit and collections department now for 4 years. So,
Oh yeah, that's that area that you find so interesting.
mhm.
Hmm. So you were out with that group last night, fighting your way through that thing as well.
What thing? Me? I was home sleeping. No. Mm-mm.
That wasn't you.
No, don't mix me up in
Okay,
that. No,
wonderful. Well, welcome, welcome aboard, Janelle.
Thank
I'm sure
you.
you'll find some things and have already along the way that can be very helpful. You work
Yeah.
at Bank of the Bahamas. Um,
Yes.
does that mean that Bank of the Bahamas is better off because of your presence there?
Well, I hope so. They
Okay.
keep me around, so
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
absolutely. That is a good thing. Uh, for those who understand a little bit about stuff, we'd understand that that is an incredible thing. Okay. So yeah, you must be doing something incredible for sure. Okay, so whatever that is,
Thank
keep
you.
on
Thank
doing
you.
that. Absolutely. Besides, we need persons who are going to make Bank of the Bahamas better because Bank of the Bahamas is kind of like Commonwealth Bank. We need them to work, correct?
Trust me, I know what you're talking about.
For one reason or another, we need it to work like we need air.
Yeah.
That's all part of the risk management discussion, by the way. I didn't just throw that out by accident. Okay, for sure. All right. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard. Nikisha
Hi,
Pemberton.
good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Um,
Jesse.
my name is Nikisia Pemberton. I'm an investment and treasury analyst at the Bank of Nevis. I've been in that role for 4 years now, and I would have joined this certification program just to expand my knowledge in the area of risk and its management. And I'm hoping that it would be an asset for me and something that would potentially aid in opening even more doors for me in the future. So just expanding my horizons a little bit.
Thank you very much, Nikki, if I can call you that. Welcome aboard. I didn't know that we had guests in our midst. If I knew that, I would have probably tried to be a little more polite, Nikki. But when it comes
That's fine.
when it comes to risk management, sometimes you have to be impolite anyway, because not only is it a risky business, it could become a pretty nasty business. And if you don't get it right, it can become other kinds of problems. So yeah, you are definitely in the right place. From Nevis, well, welcome aboard. And hopefully you've been enjoying our hospitality. Have you ever been to the Bahamas before, NP?
No, not as yet, but hopefully soon in the future.
Okay, I like your dialect and NP.
Thank you.
I wish you can come to the Bahamas soon. Okay,
I'll work on it. I'll work on it.
wonderful. Wonderful. Actually, I visited St. Kitts a long time ago. Nevis is an extension somewhere, I believe, is it?
Repeat that, please.
Nevis is part of the St. Kitts area.
Yes, it's a federation, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yeah, Nevis, yeah. Okay,
Yes,
excellent, excellent. Great to have you aboard.
thank you.
Okay, let's see who's Sharella. Stirrup.
Good
Sharella?
night.
Good
Hi,
night,
can
Sharella. Hi, introduce
hey.
yourself. Say
Okay.
something.
Okay, so my name is Sharella Gibson Stirrup. I have been in the financial industry arena for about 15, 14 years. I spent most of my time in offshore banking. And now I am with the local broker dealer in the, I'm the compliance officer of a local broker dealer. That's a tongue twister, local broker dealer.
Yeah, that's tongue twister sort of.
Yes.
Hey, and you're doing this thing because
Well, compliance and risk management goes hand in hand. I think being with a smaller firm, because, I guess some of the roles tend to overlap. And I find that, I would be the one that everyone comes to. How do you do that? What do you think? What would you do in this situation? So I thought a risk management course could help me in my decision making
yeah, it certainly would.
and just to enhance my profile.
It certainly would.
Yeah.
I can't say I envy your position. Certainly where you are, people will always be coming because somehow they think that you magically have that holistic thing.
Magically.
Yeah, and the solution to everybody's whatever it is.
And then you touched on it when you said, like, I mean, just blame compliance, yeah.
Of course, forget about the board,
Yeah,
forget about senior management,
right.
forget about legal, forget about everybody. If it
Yeah.
doesn't work, it must be compliance fault. We
Mhm,
should have seen it. We should have looked in our crystal ball. We should have
mhm.
anticipated every bloody thing possible, and therefore we're responsible. We blame,
Exactly.
yeah. So
Yep.
absolutely, welcome aboard. I'm sure you'll find some nitbits along the way that will help you. The academic side of compliance and risk is always absolutely necessary. You must do it. But of course, we know there's another side, a dark side called experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dark side that you don't see in the textbook. Textbook has all the romantic stuff. And then you go into the real world and you run into a CEO who does not want to follow the rules. And suddenly you're on the dark side
Right.
because now they start threatening you
Mhm.
directly or indirectly with all kinds of things. I mean, I've been threatened in compliance with everything imaginable. Okay. Back in the day when I first started in the world of compliance, my children were little and folks knew I had children. So they tried to check on TV. So, don't you need this job, Mr. Wilkinson? I said, yes, I do. Then you must understand that I pay your salary. I said, I do understand that. But then who do you represent? Me or the central bank? I said, well, both actually. He didn't like that. So the point I'm making is, yeah, there's a dark side as well. Dark, not necessarily meaning or ugly all the time, but certainly it can become pretty testy. And when you have to make decisions about how to manage risk and what to recommend and what to report and so on, it can get quite interesting.
Indeed.
Yeah. All right. And we don't find that stuff, unfortunately, in the textbook. We find that stuff in the world of experience. All right. So don't be surprised if you run into some unusual situations in compliance. Anyone in compliance. All right. Thank you, Sharala. Welcome aboard. Last but not least, Jamie Taylor. Are you there? Okay. There's Jamie. Apologies, I don't have a mic, still at work. Okay, Jamie is a legal administrator, GSO with banking something. Okay, Jamie, welcome aboard. Because you don't have a mic doesn't mean you don't have a voice. Feel free. If I say something interesting or you want to say something, put it in the chat. Say, hold it. I have something to put in the chat. All right. And we'll still chat. So don't let the mic thing stop you from saying something. All right. So welcome aboard, everybody. Let's get started with this business of risk management. I think Miguel may have pointed you in the right direction in terms of module 5, I believe, everybody. Yes?
Sorry, what was the question? Sorry.
Module 5, everybody. Miguel would have pointed you to where module 5 is in your.
Oh yes,
Okay.
249, page
Yeah,
249.
page 249. My goal is to get through as much of this material as possible. We might get through every single slide, or depending on how much we talk and how what goes down, we might not get through every single slide. But the real important thing is that we get into the very important aspects of risk management with regards to regulation, compliance, and ethics, and that at the end of the day, by the time you walk away from these 3 sessions, you have some stuff under your belt. And also, when you see any information with regards to these things, you can look at it a little more critically and say, yeah, I get it, and I'm ready to deal with it, kind of thing. Okay. So if you look at the very next slide under the first one, you'll see there's a big old red thing called risk management, big sign. I didn't make it red by accident. Red is supposed to represent danger, remember? And so therefore, I decided to make it red on purpose because there is great danger in ignoring risk management issues, okay, for sure. And so those of us who are dealing with risk management issues, and that means most of us, we don't have to be a compliance officer, MLRO, such person to be dealing with risk management issues. I believe you all know by now that wherever we are in the organization, we have some kind of risk that we're trying to manage every single day. All right, including our responsibility for reporting any violations that can create problems for management or risk that can cost management significantly. Okay? So pretty much all are involved in this risk management fight. Some of us have more responsibility than others with regards to it. Certainly, we're all familiar with the requirement to report suspicious transactions. That's all in sundry part of the risk management process as well. The whistleblowers that are now being given much more recognition for blowing the whistle, they too are a part of the risk management process. Make no mistake, it can be very difficult and sometimes, depending on what country you're in, very dangerous to blow the whistle and report on misgivings within your organization. And so many of us who have these responsibilities, we sometimes have to think long and hard as to whether or not we need to go that road. Some of us, by the way, by very nature of our jobs, we can think about it, but we still have to do our jobs, or we're still required to do them, particularly those in the world of compliance and risk management. All right, so that's red for a reason. There's danger in it, of course. There are benefits as well, but let's not think that there aren't any dangers involved. Okay? And also, if you notice through risk, I have a little line going through it that has it all cracked up in the middle, which means that sometimes this work can be unpredictable, unstable, and downright nerve-wracking. Right? So this picture is not an accident. I presented it that way just to remind you that this thing about risk management is red as well. Sure. All right. So what is the risk management process then? Well, before we go on, let me get some feedback from persons in this class. What do you think risk and risk management is? In your own words, of course, not that you can use anybody else's. What is risk and risk management? Anyone? Say, let it rip. Make up something. Okay, Lynn?
So I think risk management
Mhm.
is, I guess, identifying controls and different mechanisms to ensure that your exposure to any type of loss is minimized or decreased as much as possible, because I don't think that you can ever get rid of all risks. And also a part of the management process of risk is constantly evaluating and updating or reviewing the controls that you have in place, making sure that they're effective, etc.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good explanation, Lynn, for sure. Okay, because risk management really does involve all of those things and some more, as you'll see um, along the way. And how well we manage those things that you mentioned will determine whether our companies will operate with some degree of comfort or whether it'll operate in an environment of pain and suffering and embarrassment and fines and God forbid worse. All right. I'm sure you read all the horror stories about many banks and financial institutions. I think NatWest being one of the most recent ones. Anybody saw the NatWest story? No,
Yes.
you did. Yeah. So if you saw the NatWest story, you would have seen all the basic KYC and risk management flaws that were involved with NatWest and
But
taking.
it,
Mhm. Go ahead.
it's so concerning because these are major companies. So it's almost, I want to say almost, it's almost frightening, even Credit Suisse with their recent issue as well. These are major companies with the resources in place. So, it's really like, ugh, it's
Yeah,
almost overwhelming.
yeah, I quite agree. The irony is that these major institutions, like Credit Suisse, like UBS, like JP Morgan, like NatWest, like so many others, and well-known names, they
Yeah.
always seem to be involved in some doggone fining exercise where they're paying gazillions of dollars out every year for the same simple violations. And experience tells me directly that the problem is not one of resources. They certainly have more resources than most. The problem is not competence. They certainly have more qualified people than ever because they can afford to pay and offer great benefits as well, including huge bonuses, great incentives to go on the job and be good at what you do. Those are not the problem, like some other maybe smaller organizations. It would appear that with these guys, it's a kind of deliberate exercise where somewhere along the way, somebody at maybe the board and or senior management level decides that they're going to take that risk. See,
Yeah.
notwithstanding, yeah, we're right back to the risk again. And that if we get caught, then we'll just pay the fine. It seems like some of these organizations are almost budgeting in the event they get caught.
Oh, they
So,
do. They do. And they
yeah,
would call it a slap on the wrist because the risk, yeah, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And somewhere along the way, they sit down and measure the cost benefit. And somewhere they decide, certainly not in middle management, has to be at the very top of the organization. They decide that, okay, if we get fined 100 million, then we must plan to make 300 million. So at the end of the day, when we net it out, it becomes profitable for us to violate the rules again. And so, yes, Shirella, that concern is nauseating for those of us who want to think about it in that context. Of course, those who are getting richer and richer every year and greedier every minute and all that stuff, it's not nauseating to them at all, apparently. I don't think they're doing it for their health. Clearly, there's a lot of money involved in making provisions to get fined and then do it again and get fined and do it again. Has to be. And so, the question then, with regards to our discussion about any risk management process, is what the hell do we do about them? And the answer is simpler than you think, but nobody seems to have the nerve to do it. And that is stop slapping white collar criminals on the wrist and start slapping them in. Anyone? Starts with P.
Pockets. I don't know.
Say it again.
Sorry, slapping them in what? Prison? Pocket? Prison.
Yeah, prison. Prison. And stop putting them in comfortable prisons for 18 months. See my point? Put them in a Brazilian prison maybe, or a Chinese prison, or something where life is miserable, South American, somewhere stinky, maybe then. But as long as we keep slapping them on the wrist, sorry, then they keep taking the risks, apparently. That seems pretty evident. So yes, Shirla, I share your concern. It is nauseating. And this thing has been going on for years and years and years. All right. So now that we've established that platform, you will then see why all of these other things we talk about are so critical. Because we need to be able to do these things coupled with the nerve to come against that kind of brazen behavior all too often by the senior management of the firms in which we work. Okay? That's the most unsettling part of all. Because fighting those guys is a nightmare. I'm telling you from experience, I've come nose to nose with a couple of persons in senior management, as a senior management person, as a senior compliance person, and sometimes it's not a pretty picture. They threaten you with all kinds of things, like your job, and your bonus, and your promotions, and your salary increases, everything they could think of, directly and indirectly, just to get you to tick the box, shut up, and look the other way, so to speak. All right. So what is involved then in the risk management process? Well, very generally, we call it business risk. The only reason why we call it business risk because we're all doing some business of some kind. For most of you guys, it's either financial or regulatory or some such thing. Okay? Somebody here is in the broker dealer business. Who's that? Let's see. Yeah, shut up. The broker dealer business, of course, is prone to all kinds of stuff, just like the money remittance business and such, the casino business and so on, the real estate business. They all have their risk issues attached to them. And so we all refer to all that stuff as business risk. And so all of our discussions about business risk encompasses all these things. And so again, given the nature and size and type of business, where it's located, who are the clients, man, some interesting things happen. All right, big versus small business, local versus geographical business somewhere else in the other side of the world. Whatever it is, this issue of business risk has a whole lot of risk attached to it. And notice the list that we have, it's a long laundry list. See that? Legal risk. Now, you think with all this risk that we try to be better, try to do our jobs better, and many of us do. The problem is there are still too many persons who are circumventing the requirements and therefore continuing to have these many different types of risks prolonged in the life of organizations. Just when we try to fix one problem because folks are not following through their responsibility to manage risk competently, then we find ourselves back into the same risk dark holes all the time. So let's look at a couple of risks. I'm sorry, but this list is not exhaustive. Even though it's exhausting, it's a long list already. But it does cover some of the key problems that we see every day. Some of us may not necessarily be directly involved in most of them, but we certainly will be in environments where if we're not directly involved, we'll be indirectly involved in some form or another. And if you're not directly involved today, when you get another position later, you'll be directly involved. There's just no getting around it. Okay? So let's look at some of the major types of risks in the risk management process that we have to deal with all the time. Legal risk. Man, the kind of reputation and financial loss that can be suffered because you don't comply with the legal requirements. We see it all the time. Regulatory risk, man, we just talked about that. These guys are getting fined left, right, and center, but they're still doing whatever they feel like doing for some reason. Okay? Regulatory laws are changing all the time to get the bad guys to be good, catch them, to tell them to stop being bad guys, to tell them what we'll do with them when we catch them. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay? Reputation risk out there, threat to your good name, the good name of the organizations. Some of the organizations obviously feel that they're so big that they can do stuff that can threaten their reputation and still maintain their good name because they're big and well known. And we will continue to forgive them and forget potentially. Tech risk. I don't know if you guys are seeing any tech risk from day to day, but any disruption in technology is a tech risk. Cybersecurity issues is a tech risk. Hackers are a major tech risk, as we all now know. No server is safe from some hacker somewhere. And so now, what used to be a routine bit of technology work has become a real task for just about every type of organization in the world. Because the hackers are like terrorists. We don't really know where they're coming from and the reasons why they attack. They all have different reasons. So they're like a group of little technological terrorists that are just going all around the entire world, from their bathrooms, bedrooms, in the bush, wherever, their cars, wherever it is,
Mr.
library.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
I think the reality is, with the launch of different fintechs, popping up, traditional banking, as we know it, is pretty much shrinking. It's virtually vanishing before our eyes. And where criminals used to come in the bank and hold you up physically, they're now hacking systems. So it's just the way the world, everything is just evolving. And yeah, just how people plot and plan on their next move. Like when you watch Set It Off, they have these little hubs where they're trying to devise, how are we going to invade this particular system? And it's a real thing. So particularly like our companies that's online based, we just beef up resources in the tech, area, ensuring that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And maintaining your technology is not business as usual anymore. Just the same way now, how we have to put bars on our windows, alarms on the thing, and do all that crap out there. We have to do the same thing with our technology because the thieves and the hackers and the joyriders are all zooming in, looking to see whom they may devour. Absolutely. The problem with these guys in the old days when they rob a bank, you can pull up the police cars there inside. They're there to bring in SWAT. As soon as somebody makes a mistake, you shoot them in the head. Everybody goes home happy that that ordeal is over. These guys are out in cyberspace, and so the technology risk is this invisible monster, thief, joyrider, whatever they call themselves, and it's going to be a real problem. But like she said, unfortunately, technology has brought us into this new age. And what we're doing, on top of the other things we're doing, we're getting rid of the old traditional way of doing things. So we look like we're not even interested in maintaining any backup. Using the old systems, we're plunging head over heels and putting all of our confidence and everything into the technology. And there will definitely be fallout along the way, indefinitely. Okay? So yes, when we talk about disruption technology, we're not just talking about the server is old, the lights went out, the cord needs to be changed. That's not what we're talking about only, that's the light stuff. This other thing about the cyber criminals, that's going to be a nightmare until God knows when. Sure. All right. Hold on it. It is just, I don't know about you guys, but it is very unsettling. And even if you don't think about it from your organizational level, because it may not be your problem directly, think about your online banking where you've saved, like, finally saved $5,000. Let's use a regular person's bank account, not like people who make lots of money, just regular people. You know, like you save a couple of bucks every month, and then you finally get to $5,000, and you thank you, Jesus. $5,000 finally, and you put it into your bank account. And then somebody hacks it and runs off with it. Of course, all things being equal, you will get your $5,000 back. But the point I'm making is this technology risk, it comes all the way home, right to our bedrooms, where we're making banking transactions from our phone. Pretty spooky, actually. All right. Not to mention credit card fraud and all these other technologically related stuff. I saw an ad on the TV the other day where criminals can use technology to go and steal your property title. Now, how the hell any system allows that to happen is beyond me, since as far as I'm concerned, no property should be negotiated unless an original signature is made, or some signature that even if it's electronic, it is so secure, Fort Knox could not be compared to it. But apparently it's not that way. Apparently they have this thing where people can go and steal your social security number and then go and steal your property title and then take possession of it, call it their own, and then the police and others come and tell you to move out because you don't own that property anymore. Anybody ever heard about that?
No, but I
Yes,
did
sir.
recently hear about the card scanning, where they would just
Yes,
bump into you and already scanned your credit cards and then use it. I heard
absolutely.
about that one.
Yeah, absolutely. The other technological madness. They bump into you and your card information is gone. And then before you know it, it's maxed out and you still have in your car, in your wallet or purse, you never even touched or purchased anything. And now you're liable unless you can prove otherwise. Okay? So yes, we are surrounded by risk, not just in the organizations we work for, but as we move every single day. Okay? That's what makes it so spooky. All right, on technology risk. Compliance risk, well, we all have an idea about that. We don't comply with the laws, with FATF, with EU. By the way, do you guys know that they put us back on the gray list? Anybody?
Yes, that Christmas present was too good to be true. We were removed 2 Decembers ago.
Yeah, like my question, um, Shirella, since you're in the broker-dealer business, broker dealers tend to be a little more practical in their business than the other people. But after all that great stuff in December, the Bahamas has met 38 out of 40 of the requirements.
Yep.
Like and we really worked hard to do that stuff. We went through all kind of pain and suffering in order to do that. And then suddenly in January, the EU comes back over the head of FATF and CFATF
Mhm.
and said, we're putting the Bahamas back. Now, why is it that they put us back? We only like 400,000 people and some the pigs who swim in Exum or something. So why are they targeting us? Anyone? Make a guess. Why are they targeting us? Like, aren't there a lot of places to target, like Russia, the whole of Asia, the whole of Africa, the whole of South America, a big old batch of the Western world? Like, how did they get to us? Anybody? Again,
It's a scam.
my. Well, you have a list. You have a list of risks in front of you. Which risk would that fall into? Which category would you say? Look at the list and let's see. Where does the Bahamas on the gray list again fall? You think it falls into any of those categories? Maybe legal risk? boss for non-compliance? Like, what did we not comply with this time? Does anybody know?
I saw an article, I think last year, I want to say, with the gentleman who was in charge of the FATF, where he had a prominent position in the FATF and he resigned. And
Yes.
he basically said it's like a political agenda and they're not really trying to make any progress. So
Yeah.
I think they've identified small states and states that are competitive or had a thriving industry, and they've chosen to say, we're going to kill it because
Yeah.
there's no real laundering happening, but everyone is on this gray list. You can't really say why we're on it, what you're using to put us on it. And it's just this continuous cycle of trying to improve, trying to pass regulations while you have banks in countries like Russia laundering money, and you have banks like Deutsche Bank with the fines. And like you say, it's just a slap on the wrist.
Indeed. Not to mention all the banks throughout the EU that are laundering money as well. The very same EU.
Yeah, they're laundering right now for the Russians who are being sanctioned.
Of course. Yet they found a moment in their smoky little room somewhere to drag us back into the mess. Probably because, despite the fact that we've done everything possible to make sure that we keep our noses clean to the greatest possible extent, and they know this, we still continue to quote unquote thrive as a jurisdiction. And when I say we, I don't necessarily mean the Bahamas only, I mean this entire jurisdiction, period. Okay. So yeah, you're probably right. Very, very interesting and important risk issue for the Caribbean jurisdiction, period. Okay. Caribbean. Let's not forget that the expression Caribbean has certain other implications for them. I don't want to incriminate myself, but yes, you're absolutely right. All right. And the list goes on. Compliance risk for not being compliant, credit rate risk for those persons who give credit, financial institutions who give thousands and millions of dollars and hope that they get paid. Many of them don't get paid. They have to write them off for one reason or another. Countrywide risk. A lot of countries borrow money that they cannot pay back. And so IMF and IFC and all the other, World Bank and others, reluctantly sometimes write some off, and then other times they keep it so they can harass you with it until thy kingdom come. All right. But the risk of credit risk, the issue of credit risk is very real, even outside of that context, that when you put money out, there's always a chance that you won't get it back. Even if you loan somebody $50 and they promise to pay you tomorrow or next week, there's a great chance you may not get it back. That's credit risk as well, on a very small scale, same principle. Market risk, broker dealers know all about it. Losses in the market because of changing interest rates, because of wars, because of rumors of wars, because of political inclinations, and so on. The list goes on. Fiduciary risk, those persons who are supposed to be acting in good faith, trustees and others, whether they are trustees by instrument on settlement or whether they're constructive trustees, there's a fiduciary risk which is often violated because not everybody is ethical or as ethical as they ought to be. And then last but not least, remember, this is a long list, but it's not exhaustive, but it does cover most of the really, really heavy stuff. Okay. Operational risk. And where's the problem there? Putting procedures in place that don't work. Okay, for sure. For example, the world thought it had some things in place to deter countries like Russia from going into sovereign countries like they are doing now, but that didn't work. They still went into those old bloody rusty tanks and whatever they have and rumbling in, making innocent people, a sovereign nation, rubble again for God knows what. Anybody knows the reason? Who knows why Putin is going there? Anybody? Or only
Fear of
Putin knows?
Ukraine joining NATO.
To have Ukraine from doing what?
NATO.
You mean he thinks that Ukraine is too strategic of a location to be a part of NATO?
Yeah, because pretty much, I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to get bits of what I think or hear people discussing.
No, you're absolutely right. None of us knows the real reason, except maybe Putin himself. And be hoping that he knows the real reason as well. But because it's like hell to send 200,000 people in a sovereign country in the middle of COVID. By the way, are we still suffering from COVID? I don't have any discussion about COVID. When I turn the TV on now,
What
every
is
breaking
COVID?
news
What
is
is that?
how come COVID is no longer breaking news, anyone?
I think we're just trying to keep up. We don't, we just, we're just trying to keep up.
Okay, okay, yeah, the risk of keeping up. See, more risk. The risk of trying to keep up. The risk of trying to keep up means you start excluding important information that you should still be talking about because people are still dying from it, correct?
Exactly, exactly.
So
I
this,
just think everybody got annoyed when they started saying the PCRs aren't really valid and the rapids are. I was just like, come on, guys, what are we doing now?
well, the problem is we're just hoping upon hope that something about what is said about everything that was said and done has some substance somewhere. That's kind of where we are at the moment. Is it all a lie? We don't know. Is it all the truth? We don't know. We're just in the middle of whatever the hell it is. Therein lies another risk. Okay. So yeah, this risk thing is not only organizational wide in terms of the firm you work for, but there are also these externalities. Okay, just look at what COVID did to the firm. In 2019, everybody we were all on a roll, doing our thing, flying around the world, attending meetings, shaking hands, exchanging business cards, exchanging languages, all kinds of stuff, having dinners, suppers, lunch, and brunches, all that kind of stuff. And then suddenly COVID comes and changes the whole risk strategy. And suddenly we all locked down home doing work in our bedrooms in our pajamas. Interesting. All right. So yeah, COVID is just another reminder of the unprecedented kind of risks also that can occur. That was something that we didn't bargain for, plan for, even were aware of. It just happened. What Putin is doing is not new. Putin has tried to get in Ukraine many, many years ago. We just most of us just don't know or remember. He was not successful then, but it looks like he plans to be successful now for perhaps reasons known only to Putin. In any event, that behavior creates all kinds of national and international risks, issues. Okay, unfortunately. All right. So with that in mind, let's look at the key risks areas that we should all be thinking about, countrywide, organization-wide, home-wide, wherever we are. Okay. I've broken it down into four key areas. Okay, key risks. Question? Okay.
Yeah, it's just interested to know what you think about sort of what has been like the reaction to the war and how it's being fought with, for example, like sanctions and SWIFT. And what are your thoughts on that? It's quite different than
Yeah, it is. And again, the rest of us, meaning the rest of the world, the people that governments are supposed to be protecting and making provisions for so that we can have our families and live in peace and enjoy our lives. I just thought I'd throw that in there to remind people that that is really the prime directive. But to answer your question, the problem is it's very possible that Putin wanted, first of all, he wants Ukraine for whatever reason. We can guess he has a reason, whether it's good or bad is another issue. He wants Ukraine. That's the first problem. So he's gone into a sovereign country, devastated everybody. The second problem is he may have been hoping that maybe the United States would join the fight so that when the US sends troops into Ukraine, it becomes the US again trying to help somebody on foreign soil and unfamiliar territory with all the other crazy things connected there too. And then, of course, if because the US troops are limited and Putin's troops are numerous because he is closer to home and blah, 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 and something happens and the war is and Russia still overcomes Ukraine, then it's a, oh, the Russians have defeated the Americans. Then it becomes another stinky situation. And clearly the Americans are not interested in getting into that kind of situation at this time. Let's not forget they just came out of Afghanistan after being in there fighting to try to stabilize the country for how long? Does anybody know?
20 years.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know, prior to that, the Russians were there for 20 years. And the Afghan people run them out too, eventually. Okay? The problem is Ukraine is a much more structured country, much more quote unquote. So don't quote me, civil country than Afghanistan. And therefore they can be taken over easy because they have stuff to lose and they have comforts and so on. In Afghanistan, they have stuff to lose and comforts too, but it's of a different kind. They're a bunch of bloody guerrilla fighters, and it's very hard to mess with guerrilla fighters. That's why neither country has been able to subdue Afghanistan. Okay, that's another perspective. The other thing is we have to be careful with. It's like we don't want to get into the drug deal scenario where there's a drug deal going down and everybody pulls out their guns and nothing happens until somebody pulls the trigger and then everybody lose their mind and start shooting everybody up. And then at the end, everybody is devastated. And so all those possibilities exist. And then on top of that, let's not forget that maybe the world is looking at another way to fight that kind of war. And it's called a sanctions war. The good thing about a sanctions war, if there's anything good about it, is that you don't have to put boots on the ground. You get an opportunity to shut down some stuff with some despots and others and dictators and others like Putin around the world that maybe you wanted to do a long time ago, but couldn't come up with a good political reason. Now we're setting a precedent that any country now who decides they want to pull a bloody Putin can now find themselves being sanctioned and cut off from the world and bring on great pain and suffering and political disrespect in their country. So you see the list is another laundry list, but clearly those are some of the issues at stake. And one thing we have to be careful with is that we don't end up with an all-out, full-scale, multinational bloody war in the middle of COVID, no less. And I think, for what it's worth, the Americans' decision to sanction rather than put boots on the ground for the moment is a good one. And hopefully, when he's done, Putin, he'll only take Ukraine, have it for a little while. The Russians will get pissed off with him. Somebody will finally do what they should have done and come up with a sniper shot and start all over again, something like that. But yeah, those are kind of suggestions about the possibilities. All risk related, implied, and very relevant to our discussion. Of course, we've taken it out of the firm, the organization, but we just take it into a bigger organization called the country, the world, same principle, same issues apply. Okay, for sure. All right, that's a good question, by the way. It's a very burning question. So, what are the 4 key risk areas within any organization? Remember, a country is also an organization. Let's not forget. Okay? Countries buy and sell, countries go to war, countries are organizations, countries make decisions, and countries make these same 4 decisions as well. Okay? And let's see if you can connect the dots. Number 1, strategic risks. What are these? These are usually long-term objectives. Where do we want the Bahamas to be in 5, 10, 20 years? Are we still going to be on the EU list or not? See, like that. Those are strategic questions. Long-term objectives. What are our strategic plans for education and healthcare and political stability? These are all strategic questions. In an organization, where does the organization want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Are we still going to be an organization? Are we going to be offering these same products, or are we going to add new products? Are we going to stay in a particular line of business, or are we going to be in a multifaceted business? These are all kinds of, are we going to get involved in mergers and acquisitions? Are we going to diversify? Are we going to become a monopoly? Are we going to become an oligopoly? Are we going to, all these are all long-term decisions that many times have risk implications. And so those companies who plan way down the line are more than likely going to be a little better than their competition, who may not be making similar strategic plans, okay, for the long term. Then we have the operational risk, the day-to-day. Okay? How are we going to execute the strategic plan? For example, the thing with Putin, war. They obviously were talking about this all through COVID, apparently, somewhere. I don't think it's an overnight affair like they got up on this, let's go to war. No, those guys led by Putin sat down and strategically planned that war to some extent anyway. And the plan was to go in and take Ukraine for whatever reason. That's the strategic plan. That's the long-term plan. Their operational risk is to mobilize their forces, send a whole bunch of guys, and then overwhelm them. Well, they have to run into some kinks, but that's probably what the day-to-day. How are we going to implement this strategy? Organizations do the same thing. If we're going to be around for the long term, what are we going to do from day to day, month to month, to put that strategy into place? Are we going to hire more staff? Are we going to get rid of some staff because we want to be lean, technology driven in order to achieve this objective, and so on? Do we need specialized people, specialized products? These products that we have, are they going to create any long-term risk issues for us? And if they do, are we prepared to withstand that risk or not? Okay. And so what day-to-day stuff are we going to put into place as an organization in order to make it happen? So operational risk, that's the second key risk. Then we have what we call financial risks. And that has to do with how we report our information, what's going into market. Are we liquid enough to do what we want to do? Do we have any credit risk involved in our business? And so on. Okay. Does anybody know what liquidity risk is? Anyone? Make a guess.
The risk that you may not be able to meet your short-term objectives.
Yeah, specifically your short-term objective to pay your bills.
Payments, yeah.
Yeah, when they become due. See, a lot of people think it's okay. Well, I'll pay my bills when I feel like it. No, it doesn't work that way. You may, but that's not the requirement. Bills are required to be paid when they're due. All right, that's how it should work. And so liquidity is all about having enough money around to pay your bills. And many companies have liquidity problems. Okay, I saw most recently that countries are having major country loans becoming due sometime this year, post-COVID, in the millions and billions of dollars. And many of them are apprehensive as to where they're going to get the money from post-COVID to pay the IMF or the World Bank or Royal Bank or some other institution that they borrowed money from. Okay? So financial risks is definitely one of the four. And then last but not least, the big kahuna that we've been talking about, compliance risks. Anything connected to legal and regulatory and EU and FATF and all that stuff, they all fall under compliance risks. And we face them every single day. All of our efforts, all of our energy in the compliance area designed to see if we can push back and quote unquote ensure that our organizations are, the risk connected to our organizations are minimized to the greatest possible extent. It's a huge job. And sometimes the players in the organization themselves don't make it any easier to do that job, which is quite interesting. All right. So each risk is unique. It has its own definition and its own impact on your organization where you work. And the sooner you find out what they are, the better. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a consulting for an offshore bank as we speak, and one of their problems is they have issues with. They just came out of a central bank inspection, and the central bank came up with all kinds of things they need to do. You didn't do this thing, you didn't do that thing, you don't have a risk management, you don't have a self-assessment, your board is not functioning, proper governance. The list goes on and on and on. And they're like, my God, we don't have enough time to do the normal stuff. Can you give some direction? Can you write some manuals? Can you come up with a doggone risk management profile? Can you? And all this kind of stuff. So these things are very real, and organizations are battling with them, especially smaller financial institutions of any kind, not necessarily banks, others as well, uh, and not only smaller financial institutions entirely. A lot of larger institutions, like somebody said earlier, like persons who should be doing better, know better, have the resources to do better, they're still being impacted by things that smaller organizations are being impacted by. Fortunately, the regulators in those countries are smart enough to, get some extra money for the treasury by fining them large sums of money. Maybe they need to double the fine. So they fined them 200 million last time. Maybe they should double or triple that, see what happens. And then if that doesn't work, then say, you know what, if we have to come back again, somebody's going to spend time in prison. We'll decide that on a case by case basis, whatever the case might be. But again, these are all what we call risk mitigators. See, if we can minimize uh, the kind of risk issues that exist. But each risk has its own definition. In other words, there's no one definition for risk in any particular organization. Each one has its own impact. So you can't say because it happened in the last place I worked, it should be similar at this place. It might be entirely different, right? For sure. Each risk requires very careful examination, very careful analysis, monitoring and control. Somebody said stuff like monitoring and control earlier in the definition of risk, definitely. And every organization is unique. Okay. It's just like I have two sons. I tell them, no two females are the same. They may both be females, but because they are females and they have female stuff that are similar in character, doesn't mean that they are the same by no stretch of the imagination. And organizations are like that. Even though some characteristics appear similar, there are some inherent differences when it comes to identifying, analyzing, monitoring, and controlling risk. For example, you're a big time compliance officer, MLR, or whatever in your organization. You find that the onboarding process has some weaknesses. You conduct your analysis and investigation after identifying the problem, and so you watched it. After monitoring it for a while, you decide something isn't right here. And so in your report to the board of directors, you indicate in your report that these are the concerns that you noticed in the last quarter or year, or whatever the case might be. And suddenly you don't get an answer from the board. Like, tell us more. Join us at the next board meeting so we can discuss it. Let us discuss how we can mitigate the issue and so on. Suddenly you get no answer. And as a compliance person, you're thinking, what does that mean? Does that mean what it means? Or does that mean what it means? See? So all of a sudden, the monitoring and control process is no longer routine because now you're in a dilemma trying to figure out, well, why didn't they answer? So you send a follow-up note. Excuse me, dear Mr. Board, and the rest of you. Further to my other thing that I sent the other time. Any feedback? And then suddenly you don't hear anything again. And all of a sudden now this monitoring and control starts to get gray. It's like, why wouldn't they answer? Compliance. What do I do now? Do I report them If I report them, then everybody's going to be mad at me. They might fire me. They might. So each risk is unique. All right. And we have to carry out these functions despite the issues connected there too. Okay. And whoever the stakeholders in the job of risk management are, we need to know who they are. We need to identify them. For example, if we have products in our organization that present potential risks, whatever they might be, we have to ask ourselves as compliance in particular, not only compliance though, marketing people and other people. This product you're marketing, is there any risk to us? This debit card that you can push anywhere in the world and go on something crypto and get money without any regulation or checking or balance. See, what kind of risk does that present for us? Oh, don't worry about it. This is going to make us a lot of money. And isn't that why we're in business, to make money? And so on. Okay. So again, even down to the simple products that we offer our clients, we have to ask ourselves, are there any inherent risks in the products we offer? And if there are, what are they? And once we identify them, how can we mitigate against that risk? And then it might even be decided that maybe we shouldn't carry that product anymore. And suddenly, compliance in its infinite wisdom has to write the same board who didn't answer the other thing and say, in my humble opinion, we need to divest ourselves of this particular product because it creates too many inherent risks for the organization as a whole. See, that's your big time speech to the board. And then you wait for an answer. And just like the last time, nobody answers because they are not interested in getting rid of that product. That is their baby. They know what the risks are. They've decided without compliance involvement that they will take that risk and and okay. So there you go. Welcome to the world of risk management and trying to manage it. And it only gets interesting going forward. So now that we know what the key areas are, strategic and operational, financial, compliance, now we have some other things to consider as risk management compliance people. And again, I just kind of pull them into sections just so you can remember some of this stuff, but it's a long list, no matter how we look at it. So, what do we do now that we know what the key risks are in our organization? And again, when I say we know, doesn't mean we know. There are some persons on the board who doesn't even know what you mean by key risk management. And there are many who do know, and because they know, they violate them. And who's in the middle? Compliance. Trying to find a way to get the board and senior management on board, even though every year they're told by regulators and others to get on board. Nothing can work without you. You guys at the board top level are the drivers. You have to make it easy for your compliance and risk management people to do their jobs. You people. Let's make sure that stakeholders are satisfied and not uncomfortable with being a part of your organization. All right. So now what do? We know the key risks. We saw that laundry list. How do we go about identifying and assessing the risk in our organizations? Well, I think most of us might have an idea, but how do we identify money laundering? How do we identify regulatory risk? How do we identify our reputational risks that are facing our firms, products, services? Well, again, we learn about them in sessions like this, and then we gain experience over time. And then we combine those two things to help us to identify risk better and to assess it better so that we can mitigate it better. And sometimes, even with all that infinite knowledge, things still don't go well, depending on the situation. So We identify and assess what's going on in our firm. And again, it's not rocket science. You just go into your firm and say, what products do we have and what risk associated with these products, if any? What services do we offer and what risk associated with these services, if any? What is our risk profile? Are we risk averse or we love to take risks? Is compliance risk averse, but the board loves to take risks? See? Is the board risk averse, but the client's prepared to compliance prepared to accept? The list goes on in terms of how we identify and assess. But this is all part of the assessment process, trying to figure out how we're going to deal with our potential risks. Not always easy thing to do, which is one of the reasons why people work around it. So once we make our assessment, how do we mitigate? What steps are we going to take to get rid of the risk that's built in that we identify? That's a really big job. It is not an overnight affair, and it's something that you have to practice and work with on an ongoing, consistent basis. Okay. So if you have a debit card product that presents a kind of risk for your company, how do you mitigate it? Well, you need to try and establish who you're issuing these debit cards to. Can you actually get the relevant KYC on these people to make sure that they're legitimate people? Or half the portfolio a group of gangsters from Russia or something? So this mitigating of risk is a very, very big issue. A lot of companies, financial institutions get stuck because they don't mitigate very well. Just like in our own personal lives. Example, we're dating somebody and we see some inherent risk somewhere, like they're really mean, but because like maybe they're cute or handsome or something, they're rich maybe, we start not taking mitigating steps to get the hell out sooner rather than later. And organizations do the same thing. Sometimes they know that some of the clients they're dealing with are very high risk clients, but money is a very significant driver. And therein lies the problem. Because as far as money launderers and fraudsters, and traffickers, and all the other persons who make our lives miserable in organizations trying to clean up money and get away with murder, they know that a whole bunch of people who work in institutions still have a price. And for enough money, we'll still agree to do some things that we shouldn't do. And this is what makes risk mitigation oftentimes so difficult. Not necessarily because the resources are not available and the processes cannot be effective. It's just that persons involved, because of greed or otherwise, make it very difficult, if not impossible. Okay? Risk monitoring, how do we put things in place to watch stuff? We try to put an MIS in place, reports are coming out. If transactions get over a certain level, a buzzer goes off, a report is printed. We do all kinds of things to monitor, bank statements and investment portfolios and all this stuff. And we do our best to do that, given the organization size and complexity, etc. Okay? The key is that we be aware of these things. Are we going to catch everything? Hell no. Do we try to catch as many as we can? Hell yes. And so these steps to monitor and mitigate and all that stuff is really just there to help us be aware of the madness we're in and to be alert at all times to try to mitigate. Okay. Which brings me to the fourth step in the process, risk management, and that is document, document, document. If you are in risk management, you need to make sure you have the proper records or certain information available to justify what you are doing. Make sure there are policies and procedures. Financial institutions have been fined multiple times for not having simple policies and procedures in place. Make sure your policies and procedures are consistent with your organization, not the organization where your best friend works. That doesn't work. Because some folks believe that they can cut and paste themselves through a policies and procedures process because they don't want to take the time to do it. sufficiently. They don't want to pay. Have somebody do it sufficiently. But if you don't pay now, in time and money and so on, you will pay later. Okay, so document, get your policies and procedures in place that govern your compliance, that governs your risk management process, etc. So at least if, let's see who comes in, a regulator. Let's see. So if Ebony comes in, you can be confident. Sure, excuse me, where are the policies and procedures? You give it to her. Where's the discussion at the board level about, give her the minutes, whatever the case might be, to effect your mitigation of governance unrelated risks. Okay? Document, document, document. That's the whole point. Remember, in the compliance and risk management, there's an old saying that if it's not documented, you never did it. Even if you did. I swear I did the checks. I swear I reviewed everything. God knows it. Why would I lie? Nobody is saying you didn't do it, but if you can't prove it, then you didn't do it, as far as organizations are concerned. And regulators, for that matter. Don't waste your time telling your regulators you did it if you can't prove it. Did you do training last year? Yes. Where are the training logs? We didn't think we needed it. Everybody's got training when we were busy. Well, if you don't have training logs, they're going to write you up and say there was no training in 2021. And you're going to say, how come? We told you there was training. Everybody can say so. And the regulator will say, I know, but you don't have any record of it. And if you're not documenting it, then we have no evidence, Mr. Miss Financial Institution, that it actually happened. Okay? All right. And so what is that black figure in the corner there with the hands pulling down on some stuff? Well, that is the hand, hopefully, of the board of directors who are looking at the operation holistically and who are thinking that we need a plan to fix our risk issues, our compliance issues, because after all, we are first and foremost responsible. Hopefully that little dark spot in the corner is such a person. Because if that person is really under a hood, like so many other board members and senior management, then this risk plan that you're looking at is in jeopardy. For sure. Every organization should have some kind of risk plan. And as you can see, I kind of simplified it for you so you don't have to lose sleep and pull your hair out trying to figure out what some of the components might look like. You just have to take a moment when you get a moment. If you're in this business of risk management, compliance, so look at it and says, okay, imagine yourself going into a meeting next week or before the board of directors, if they're bold enough to invite you as the risk management person or compliance. And so, you know what? We need to consider a risk plan for this organization, ladies and gentlemen. And in order to come up with such a plan, we have to find out what are all the hazards or hazardous things that are going on in this firm that could hurt us. Let's be honest, what are they really? Okay, so you identify the hazards, the problems. Because once you identify them, then you can now assess them. Well, this particular one where there's a conflict of interest with board members, that does not look very well from a corporate governance perspective. And I suspect the next time the central bank comes in, they're going to be concerned about why is it that two board members are actually running a company that is competing with the company that they're sitting, whose board they're sitting on. That is clearly a hazard. But this is what the assessment of risk is all about, going through the hazards and finding out how to fix them. And what you can't fix, get rid of. And therein lies the problem, because it's easier said than done. In the academic world, we have a nice little chart like this one. But in the real world, it's not that easy to fix, especially if fixing it is going to embarrass somebody senior or cause them to lose their senior management position or cause them to not generate annually the kind of kickbacks or other emoluments that they may be getting from doing the wrong thing. See? That's what assessing risk can bring about, some other real problems. And so rather than solve the problems that have been identified and assessed, organizations sometimes take a shorter route and get rid of the person who's trying to fix the problem. That's one of you, compliance risk management person. They get you either to conform, maybe, or get out in favor of somebody who will be more suitable for them. All right. So you have a risk plan, you identify the hazards, you assess your risks, looks good on paper. It's doable. You just have to be trained enough, experienced enough, and bold enough when the time comes to execute. All right. You can even tell them I said what Wilkinson said, this is what I should do. See what happens. All right. So what is the next step after those three key things? And I kind of strike through them because I don't want anybody to assume that they're things you just tick off of the box. They are very complex things to achieve. Coming up with a plan, risk plan itself is a complex issue. Identifying hazards, it's another issue that's a big problem. Assessing these risks, it's another big problem. And then when we come to evaluating and reviewing everything, that's where the fight begins. It's no, not that one. That's going to hurt me. That's going to hurt my friend. That's going to hurt. We can't do that. That's not good for you. And then it gets really, really stinky trying to get it resolved. So the evaluation and review process of the whole process and involving risk management in itself is a process. And sometimes it's filled with gray areas. Well, let's say you're successful then, getting past the plan, the hazard, the assessment, evaluation, and review. Now all you have to do is implement and control. I guarantee you, if you get to the implement and control side, you have fought a masterful battle with all kinds of stakeholders. Sometimes some of us don't get to the last two steps, where we can finally implement and control the recommendations that we've been fighting to get across in terms of the risk management plan. Never straightforward. It has all kinds of hazards and unknowns involved in the process. Sometimes when you're in the middle of the assessment process, you find out that some key players in your organization are actually doing some things they shouldn't be doing. And now you have a dilemma. Do you expose them as your job requires, risk manager and compliance officer? Or do you let it go? Well, we know according to our academic world, you don't let it go. But in the real world, suddenly it becomes a dilemma. Okay? All right. So with that in mind, then, I can start talking about things like corporate governance. Okay? Now that we've laid the foundation for risk management in general. Corporate governance is really an aspect of risk management, albeit a critical aspect of risk management, albeit one of the first things that regulators like to look at when they come into organizations to do inspections. And any organization who does not have a corporate governance program, or they have one but it's less than satisfactory, regulators are never happy with that. They want you to have one, and they want you to have one that is at least satisfactory. They don't want you to stop at satisfactory, but they'll be a little more comfortable with at least satisfactory. Not having one, that's a problem. Not having one that's updated, that's a problem. Corporate governance. All right, so what is corporate governance? Anybody knows what corporate governance is?
Exactly what the word entails, how the corporation is governed.
Yeah, how the corporation is governed. Very simple. I'm sure that's exactly where the expression came from. I don't know if anybody in this class has ever heard the expression, go and govern yourself accordingly. Ever heard that?
Yes.
Yeah, typically that means get the hell out and do the right thing. That's what that means historically. And so this implication is the same for your organization. Get the hell out and do the right thing. Because, Mr. Board, members, and senior management, don't forget that you don't own the company. You have a fiduciary responsibility. See that word again? To run that company in the interest of the owners, just like trustees and beneficiaries. Senior management and the board have a constructive trustee position in trying to ensure that the organization is run with the proper governance so that all the madness you're seeing with NatWest and all the others, Credit Suisse, UBS, the whole nine yards, the big, the bad, the middle, all doing some nonsense when it comes to, especially the bigger boys who are supposed to know better. Every couple of months, even audit firms. Anybody heard about audit firms being caught up? No? Audit firms being fined for not conducting proper audits for certain big financial institutions?
I've never heard that. Oh my gosh.
Imagine that. Yes. And I'm not talking about no itsy bitsy bloody audit firm with 3 or 5 or 10, 7 people who are trying to get off the ground. I'm talking about big 5 firms.
The Deloitte and Touche and KPMGs.
Yes, them. Like we say in the Bahamas when we're not calling anybody's name, ting them. So I I just said that for the sake of Nikki, who's in Nevis. In the Bahamas, when we don't want to call a name directly, Nikki, we say ting down. Do you guys have any such expression, Nikki? In Nevis?
Which expression were you referring to?
Oh, for example, if we want to say something about somebody, but we don't want to call their name, we'll say ting down.
Oh, yes, yes.
Do you guys have an expression? What do you say?
We do. The same thing, we'd say that.
They ting down?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
Nikki, that's ours. That's ours, Nikki.
Really?
And Nikki said we say the same
Oh,
thing.
we're claiming it. We're claiming it.
Yeah, she's claiming it. So now when she goes back after these sessions, and she says, look here,
Going
somebody,
forward, we're gonna use this.
yeah, somebody said to Nikki, so Nikki, who did it? She said, don't worry, Tingham them did it. She said, who's Tingham them? Don't worry, I just got that from the other side of the fence. Just shut up
Or
and
we
wait.
would say them there.
Yeah, them there, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, them there, absolutely. All right, but it means the same bloody thing. Yes. All right. So yeah, this thing is serious stuff. And just when you think like things are settling down, another major financial institution, and these are only the ones that are discovered and indicted and fined. Imagine those who slipped through the cracks. For everyone that is fined, a whole gang get through. And that's only major financial institution. That's not designated non-financial institutions like real estate companies and accounting firms and legal firms. Man, what the hell's going on with them? Hopefully nothing. Hopefully their compliance officers and risk management people have their act together, that these designated non-financial institutions are doing what they're supposed to do. God forbid. Hopefully. Because I'll tell you, see this governance thing, this compliance and ethics thing, man, if somebody comes to a real estate agent with $1 million and say, I'd like to buy that piece of property, you think the real estate agent is going to be concerned about KYC? Anyone?
Yes.
Well, she's chuckling. Hell no, not if it was me. They may not think about it, but under the new rules, they ought to be. See? And so they ought to do all the due diligence on that person. But imagine they have $1 million in cash sometimes, somewhere in the world. And they say, I want to buy that piece of property because I need to clean up this money. They may not say clean up this money. Everybody knows it's laundering, including the real estate agent. And so sometimes they might be tempted. And so they call their lawyer friend and say, please hurry up and do the title. Hurry up, do it by tomorrow. I don't care if it's
Tingham
about
them,
time. Sorry?
Tingham them, the lawyer, Alfred
Yeah,
Gray.
Yeah, Tingham them and Co. Okay. Ah,
Stop, stop.
oh my God. Okay. And so, yeah, suddenly money laundering is not only happening in financial institutions, the royal thing of the other thing, the thing of the other thing, bank and co limited, PLC, ABC, ZAXYZ, whatever the case might be. It's happening in the real estate world. It's happening with major and minor law firms. It's happening with major and minor accounting firms. It's happening with major and minor money remitters and so on. It's a real challenge everywhere. It's happening in Hog Dog Casino and Co. somewhere. My. And the list goes on and on. Okay. So this clarion call for good corporate governance, may the horns blow indefinitely because this is an ongoing battle for senior management and boards in particular to do their jobs and do their jobs on behalf of the shareholders. And now even the shareholders who own these companies, these financial institutions, etc., whatever they might be, they too need to get on the bandwagon and start what? Becoming a watchdog for their own companies that they own. Start watching these boards, making sure they follow governance issues. When inspections are done, examination, maybe shareholders should get a copy of the examination so they can see what the corporate governance activity of their boards are doing. And maybe that may incentivize some of them to fire that board. Are you kidding me? This is what the emergency shareholders meeting. Let's clean them out and put in a new group, see what happens. And then you tell them you are a new group. See, that's called mitigation, in case you didn't recognize it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the new group. We are happy to advise you that you're replacing the old group. The reason why the old group is gone is because they failed to govern themselves accordingly in our company. And we as the shareholders, we don't want that. We want you to practice good governance, good ethics on our behalf. And we shall be monitoring along with the central bank and securities commissions and any other regulators, doggone it, to ensure that you would not be great if things go that way. That would be a very, very effective mitigator if only we can do it as shareholders even. That'd be a great help to regulators, I imagine. Shareholders would just stop thinking about profits and start thinking about corporate, good corporate governance. Okay. Suffice it to say that good governance, man, is the foundation for stability within the organization. It is the foundation on which we build relationships, trust, responsibilities, and we put everything into the governance process. We assume that if that is working well, everything else ought to be working well, all the way down to shareholders, employees, clients we do business with, and government, everybody who's a stakeholder. But if the foundation is built on sand, which is poor governance, man, that's a big old problem and continues to be one. I had a situation not too long ago. Somebody called me for free advice, and I'm like, you're asking me for free advice at this stage in my life. I'm not a young whippersnapper anymore.
So we can't call you for free advice. That's what you're saying?
If you insist, you can call me for free advice.
Oh,
Let
okay.
him finish.
But however, if it really gets really stinky, then you can be kind and so on. But yeah, if you have a situation and you want to get some feedback, that's fine. I'll tell you where the line is drawn between free advice and not free, but certainly feel free by all means, because I do want you guys to be successful in what you do. And it's a huge challenge, by the way. Okay? And one of the biggest challenge is mitigation, practicing good governance, standing your ground in an effort to bloody mitigate. Why do I say bloody? Because I've already been through all the real wars. Let me tell you what a real war is for us. A real war is when you have little children in private school and your boss says, if you don't just tick the box, you could lose your job. That's a real war. And then I say, well, I'm not ticking the box only because the requirement is X, Y, and Z. See, that's a real war. Then you leave work on your lunch hour and go to pick up your children who are saying, Daddy, can we have like nuggets? We're hungry. And then you're just thinking, man, I may so not even have money according to this mitigation requirement. See my point? I just gave you that example. So as you go forward, you will be tested. And sometimes in trying to govern yourselves appropriately and do your jobs well, you will be confronted with some very difficult decisions. And you, as a risk management, compliance mitigator in your organization, have to decide which route you can take. Notice the textbook doesn't kind of get into that. It tells you what you ought to do. Everything we're talking about is what you ought to do. But I'm sure most of you know that ought and reality are oftentimes divergent in a big way. In a kids in school have to feed way. See, when you start thinking, oh my God. And organizations know that. That's why they keep threatening you if they want something done, like the devil. You don't take the mark, you'll take this job, Mr. Compliance. Do what we say. But you won't be able to feed your children tomorrow. Mr. Compliance, Miss Risk Management. Tingham. Right? All right. I just made it dramatic so you could remember. But it is actually a very serious thing. Okay? So who are the stakeholders? You have a long list in front of you. I hope you all know these people and who they are. And if you don't know any one of them, that you will raise a question like, who the hell is that one? But you should know who these people are. Shareholders and employees and investors and suppliers and the community that you at large and the government, that's whatever government of your country might be, and so on. By the way, is Putin a stakeholder?
I
In
think
any
I'm them bank. I think I'm them bank.
Yes, I think I'm done by my, among other things. Okay. But that is entirely another risk management issue, but it's a hell of a topology though. Okay. All right. Anybody knows what I mean by topology?
FATF uses them a lot, like to illustrate, I guess, different scenarios, cases.
Yeah,
No,
where people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, where there are violations of the risk management protocols, the compliance protocols, and so on, the money laundering issue. Yeah. So you have these stories about real life situations to show a persons are actively involved in money laundering and trafficking and fraud and every other illegal, immoral, and unethical act that you can ever imagine. So remember, not every behavior that you confront as practitioners will be criminal. Some of them are just pure unethical. See? And in some cases, immoral. How about that? Immoral, unethical. Traffickers who are trafficking real live people. Once upon a time, when we trafficked people, we only trafficked adult women, which is bad enough. Adult women, which was bad enough. Now we have evolved, just like technology. The madness has evolved, and risk people are in the middle of the evolution. So now we've evolved from just women to little girls. Imagine that. Little 9, 10, 11-year-old girls tucked away around the world in little dark rooms. That's trafficking. Some sweatshop somewhere, working for nothing until they die sometimes. That's trafficking. That's all part and parcel of what you guys are involved in case you didn't know. And then, as if it wasn't basic, governance again. It's all interrelated. So we graduate from women trafficking to women and girls trafficking, and now we're trafficking in little boys. What the hell is that now? All part of this risk management process. So what do I mean by that? I mean that if you have client XYZ from a particular jurisdiction who is doing business with your organization, and you discover through your due diligence process that they're involved in trafficking, then first and foremost, you should not take on that client, period. I don't care if they come with a gazillion dollars. Except the problem is, a gazillion dollars is very tempting. And we stop thinking about women, girls, and little boys and start thinking about the money as usual. And this again is what makes mitigation so difficult to achieve in many organizations. Does that mean we're not getting some? Yes, we're getting a lot of things done right. We're successful in a lot of areas. The problem is the areas that we keep missing are still real, still significant, and still costly. And that is why this business that we're in is so crucial. It's like being in the policing business. There's just a never, as soon as you lock up somebody, hang someone, electrocute someone, or whatever, it's a whole new round of people show up. Totally unintimidated by what they saw before. And so you guys in risk management are like that. Somebody said earlier in this class that, hey, we cannot mitigate against all risk. Unfortunately, that's true. We cannot. But we get up every day because we have a standard of duty and care and skill to execute. And where does that standard begin? At the board level. We have to be prudent and wise and ethical in what we do as we carry out the law and the laws of the land. Where does that begin in an organization? At the board and senior management level first. Which is why when regulators all over the world, they bust into your organization, they don't want to talk to any small fries yet. They will. The small fries have a lot to say if they say it. But they want to go and find out what the hell is that board and senior management team up to. Do you have an INED? What's an INED, anyone?
Non-executive director, independent non-executive director.
And the key word is?
Independent.
Yeah. Even in finding an independent INED involves a whole lot of risk mitigation because a lot of INEDs are not essentially independent.
True.
Unfortunately, they're still Tingham's friend,
Friend, exactly.
Tommy's
They're
buddy
over there, friend.
law. Yeah. Johnny's brother-in-law from his bestest third wife or something. Whatever it is we do. The other guy, he's on because he has some money and I get some monthly kickbacks. Whatever we do, even finding an independent INED is a problem, which probably explains why we don't put advertisements out like for other jobs. Like, for example, organizations want a compliance officer, what do they do? Or financial controller or whatever. See, what is it? They put an ad out. Compliance officer wanted, MLRO wanted, senior accountant wanted, whatever. Even executive CEO wanted. But you don't never see an ad that says INED wanted. Please send your resume to and prove to us that you're bloody independent. Sorry, did I say bloody? Yeah, to help you remember, because it is a very serious mitigation issue. So even though the central bank has been trying to some degrees with some success to put an INED in for independent purposes, sometimes regulators will still have to come back and say to some organization, based on our inspection, Mr. Organization, your INED is ineffective. We suggest you, first of all, tell us why. And secondly, if we're not satisfied with your answer, we're going to ask you to find another one. We can't make you do anything, but as your regulator, we suggest very strongly, because we don't really want to get into the headache of sanctions of any kind and so on. That's how important this whole governance issue is. Okay? So you're sitting on a board, you're senior management, you're the first line of defense. You have to be clear and consistent in your communication with everybody in and out of your organization. You must have a clear understanding of what your organization is all about and what they're doing. And you must be prepared to sit at the board and measure what's going on in your firm with all seriousness, and then take steps. Man, I'll tell you, a couple of late last year, I'm sitting in a meeting as a consultant on a compliance set of issues, same risk management issues. And one of the issues that came up was the board did not seem to be carrying out its governance requirement and responsibilities because it did not seem to have a mechanism in place to determine what was wrong with the organization and what steps they were going to do to mitigate and what steps they had in place to monitor. There's a lot of boards don't even think about it like that. They're like just trying to, item one, okay, fine, John, you deal with it. Item two, anything else? Great, let's go and have some caviar and wine or something, whatever. I'm not suggesting all boards work that way. I'm just saying that many organizations have been found wanting by regulators around the world for not having what we call effective board meetings, board management, board control. Sorry, but it's true. All right. I know I've taken you over the time already, yapping away. The last thing I'll say for today is, you guys see that picture that I have there?
I can't see your picture. I don't know
No,
if it's
your
just me.
screen isn't shared, you know. Sorry.
Okay, let me see if I can share it. So I'm going to share it. Technology again. What am I doing, Raptor, with all of this technology? Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes. What is on the board? Can somebody just read what's on the board?
How important are ethics in today's society?
Indeed. Now, it's very clearly sitting in front of them, isn't it? Isn't it? Like everybody in that room can see it, can they not?
Mm-hmm.
Yet,
Yeah.
what are they still doing?
Copying.
Copying.
Yeah,
Copying.
yeah. And it's right there in front of them. And this is what happens at the board level in many organizations. They know things are wrong and they are deliberately doing nothing to fix it. In fact, some of them are the orchestrators. How about that?
But how do you communicate this? If you see a lull, it's not like you can raise these in the board meetings. Like, how do you remedy? What do you do?
What do you do about what exactly?
I guess steering, I mean, is it the compliance officer's job to steer the directors, to steer the board, to create the structure, the corporate governance structure, sound corporate governance structure that is, deemed appropriate for the firm?
Simple answer, yes, it is.
Okay.
I say simple answer because it can become much more complex than that, and it usually oftentimes does. Okay, but the simple answer is yes. Whenever the compliance risk management person sees any inconsistencies come up, there's something called a compliance report. But you don't have to wait for the compliance report. If it's serious enough, you just send in an email to all of the board members, a notice, and a letter, whatever the case might be.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have to wait for the quarterly or semi-annual or annual compliance report. If
Right.
it's something that is significant enough, you can respond then. Now, how well they respond to a presentation is a whole other issue. But that's okay. The key is you have a record that as the compliance risk management person, MLRO person, that you have taken what? The appropriate steps,
Mm-hmm.
all right, to do it. And once you've done that, then your job is essentially done in that regard. Okay? Will there be consequences sometimes? Sometimes. But like in any other job, there are always things going on. Okay? Does that mean you shouldn't do your job? Certainly not. When the police goes into a place that's being robbed, they'll run the risk of being shot, and many of them are shot. Dead too. Not half dead. Not on the way to death. Dead. Yet they still run in there where those bastards are, hoping that they can subdue them one way or the other. And so, sorry, sometimes compliance work is like that. You have to bust in there and see if you can subdue. Uh, Unfortunately, that is sometimes easier said than done, but that is indeed the requirement.
I was just gonna say because I think in some capacities the CEO, the COO, and the CRO kind of oversee or supersedes the findings or the directions of like the MLRO or compliance department, you know?
Yeah, all too often, unfortunately. Um, there's a new and interesting thing that the central bank is doing these days, which I thought was a nice gesture. Because it's something that when I was a young compliance officer back in the day with an afro, believe it or not, um, I just threw that out for the record. So show you how far, show you how far back it goes, the same problems you have. But yeah, that is a big problem that goes all the way back, where these persons come together to override the job that you have to do. And yet, anon, you still have to try to do the job to the best of your ability. Some people shrink under the pressure and they just kind of back off as risk management compliance people. Others have the nerve enough money to get fired, whatever it is, to say, the hell with you, I'm doing this job. Some people don't have enough money, still say, the hell with you, I'm running in there to subdue it. So again, oftentimes it all boils down to, all other things being equal, the individual, see, and what risk they're prepared to take to resolve the issue, how far they're prepared to go, how serious they are about getting their jobs done effectively, notwithstanding, okay, for sure. Imagine when somebody is wielding a weapon, the police has to run in. Where are the rest of us going? We're running the hell away, aren't we?
Yeah, to the exit.
To the exit, wherever it is, or under the
Straight
table,
to the door.
yeah, or in the bathroom. Try to flush ourselves even if possible. Anything to escape the madness, when indeed they have to run into it and put their very lives at risk. Compliance, risk management people are sometimes like that in the financial world, in the compliance world, in the risk management world, unfortunately. Okay, for sure. All right, so we'll stop there tonight so that some of that crazy stuff can simmer. I know a lot that you already know, but for whatever it is, yeah, let it simmer again and say, my God, what is this thing I'm in? But don't let that deter you. Still do, be like the police that run in, still do it. I know it's dangerous work. I know it's stinky. I know it's risky, but I'm still going to do what I came here to do. Which brings me to one other point, which will probably come up before we're done in the next two sessions, and that is the job of the MLRO and the reporting of suspicious transactions. Ah,
Awesome.
folks, I don't know where you guys are in the issue of reporting of suspicious transactions, but you should know by now that the Financial Intelligence Unit Act and Financial Act and Reporting Act and so on does make provisions that if you have a suspicion, whether you're a janitor, janitress, or a member of the board all the way up and all the way through, you should report that suspicion to your MLRO. The MLRO will then make a determination on whether there's any validity to your suspicion. And once the MLRO is satisfied, they have a legal obligation to report it to the FIU. They don't have a personal opinion, a board member suggestion, a threat. Doesn't matter what it is. They still have a legal responsibility in law. Statute bloody Tory. That means that essentially, if they don't do their jobs, they can find themselves in jeopardy with the law. And as I understand it, the FIU is beefing up now its sanctions abilities, which means that sometime this year or next year, this year, I think, they're going to be in a position to start fining institutions for not following through with their legal responsibility, which includes responding to production orders when the FIU says we need this, and you have 7 days to produce it. And if you don't produce it in 7 days, every day thereafter, you'll be fined X amount of money. Not that teeth before. But again, I just thought I'd throw that out because the job of the MLRO is all part and parcel of the job of risk management, because suspicious transaction reporting is part of your what? Risk management mitigation process, is it not? Even though you may not perceive it that way, even though your board may not even perceive it that way. Some board members, so what does the MLR have to do with risk management? Every bloody thing. Because there's a reason why the entire organization was given the statutory responsibility to report suspicions. It was by no means an accident. All right, I think I've blabbered enough for today. You guys have been fantastic. Have a great and safe week. We'll meet again next week, same time, and continue this discussion about risk management. Until then, good luck for those of you who are in this crazy work. Good luck for those of you who are planning to go into this crazy work, and like the police officer, run in anyway and see what happens. All right?
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Have
Good
a
night.
good night,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care.